Okay, cool. We are live. And so, welcome to the third installment of Office Hours for APCS. What should we start with? Do you guys have any questions in mind? Anything you're curious about?
Actually, there was for all the for one of the lab questions. Hold on, let me open it.
Okay. Go ahead and pull out the question and your code and just throw them into a paste bin.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll take a look.
Mm-hmm.
How's the week for you guys?
Good. It was good.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Should I do Java or JavaScript? Java. Are they different things? Yeah. Okay, so I sent it. It was the lab question about party rank, where they like ranked the party based on like what it was, and then for that one, I remember I had to put dot equals dot equals dot equals for each of them separately. So I was wondering if there was like a quicker way to do that, or like more efficiently.
Okay. So let us take a look. Sorry, let me silence my phone. Okay, I'll share my screen and then we'll look through this problem together. Okay, can you guys all see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Is it visible?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So party rank, method that ranked the success of a party. Party was successful. It was on a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Attendance was at least 20 people. Successful if it was held in the week and attendance was at least 15 people. So your measure success method should prompt the user for the day of the week's string and the number of people who attended. It should then print an indication. Okay, so we can break this up into a few parts. First, we need to get data from the user. Then we're going to do a bunch of comparisons based on the parameters they've given us, either weekend 20 people or weekday and 15 people, and we give them some output. Okay, so let's see. What are we doing here? We have a scanner called user input day, and we have a scanner called user input people. And then we're asking what day was the party held on. We do user input day.next. Then we ask how many people, .next int. That's good. You could also do next line here. That sometimes works better. So we do if day dot equals ignore case. Good use of the equals ignore case method, by the way. That's smart right there. Is Friday or Saturday or Sunday, and people equal 20. Okay, that's good. I'm also good job on wrapping this in parentheses.
Yeah, I guess that was like the main question you were asking. No, it was like asking how to combine all of that, or if I could combine all of that.
The separate ones?
Yeah, like, or is there any way to make that shorter, or do I have to type out equals ignore case for each separate thing?
So, okay, so there are a few ways that you could do this.
Mm-hmm.
For now, with just like the basic data structure that we have, this is probably the easiest way.
Mm-hmm.
But another way that you could do this is using some sort of hash table where instead of, we basically would be able to convert the day of the week into a number, and then your condition would just be if day of the week is greater than, I don't know, 5 or whatever. So that's one way to go about it. If you could take what the user gives you, the day of the week, if you could turn it into a number, then you could just compare that number. But you need some way to be able to do that. You could do that using some sort of like array lookup thing. Hash table works best. Something like that. Or you could literally just have like a bunch of case switch statements that assign a variable based on what the user input was, or like a method. It's a bit complicated to do that, but I think it might be a nice exercise. So we'll do that in a minute. But it looks like you have this working, right? Also, just move this back up here. It's kind of confusing to have an extra line after the if statement. That's why usually I just put this brace right after the ending parenthesis. Clear that this if is tied to that block. Okay, so you do that. Else if Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and people's grade equals 15. That's good. Then had a great party. Otherwise, parties. Okay, this is pretty solid. This is pretty solid. So I'm gonna open up Eclipse and let's see some other ways that we could go about this. So just different methods, essentially, different ways of getting this problem solved. So let's open up Eclipse there.
So you can put your laptop right here.
Okay. So I'm just going to call this question 5.
Okay.
Question 5. And the main method there. And we're just going to copy your code from here and just change it. So this is totally fine. We just need to change the name of the class to question 5. Okay. So one way that we could, if we have to do this comparison very often, and you really want to do it using numbers instead, the first way that comes to mind is to have a method that takes in the string for the day of the week and returns an integer for what day it is. For convenience sake, we can say Monday is day 0, and we can say that Sunday is day 6. So we could basically say public static int, because we're going to return an integer, get day of week, or get day number, and we'll say string day name.
Okay.
So we're going to give it a string. So our idea is here, and let's just return an empty string just so it stops yelling at us. But remember that there's a problem here. Oh, sorry, it's an int. So return, 0. So it stops bugging us. So the idea here is that we should be able to give it Monday and get 0. In programming, we might do something like we give it 0 and that, or we give it Monday and that goes to 0. Or we might give it Thursday, and what should that go to? 3. Totally. Okay. So that's what we're doing. So we're going to give it Monday or whatever, the string here, which is the day name. So we want to be able to go, this is just a representation of it, but we want to be able to say, get day number Thursday. And it should return 3 for this. So we could basically put our equals stuff inside of here. That would be one way to go about it. We could say if equals ignore case Monday and and that parenthesis there, then return 0, and then so on and so forth with else if.
Okay. But in this case, the thing that I did was already like the best way, right? Like there's, like this would take longer.
I don't know if there's one like best way for this. It's different ways of going about it, and which way is going to be best depends also on the nature of your whole project. Like if you're doing this thing once and there's not too much to it, this is totally fine.
Okay.
You know, it just depends on what parts of your code will be used where.
Okay.
So here, if we're going to do this a lot, if it was very, very often that we would need to turn our day into a number, a method like this may very well be very useful because we can do it really quickly now instead of having to do a bunch of equals. But in this piece of code, since we are only doing it once, this is basically fine. However, doing it like this puts all the code to handle that in one place. That's the beauty of a method. That's the beauty of a method. You take code that you would have to copy and paste in a bunch of places, and you get to put it in one place, and you have a shortcut to get to it, basically the name of the method. And then so on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then basically you would, instead of doing this equals, well, the ORs, you would just say if get day number or day is greater than or equal to, what is it, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Oh, this is for the first one, so it has to be less than or equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, less than 4. This is basically the days up to Friday. For that and people, it's basically, it would be like that, which is cleaner than having all those equals there.
Can I ask what the question is?
Yeah, so the question was that for this lab question, her code has a bunch of these equal ignore cases, and she's asking whether there was any better method of going about like doing this condition other than having all these equals there. So what I talked about was that you can just have all the equals happening inside of a separate method. And so instead of having them inside your condition, you can just call this method, give it the day name, like Monday or Tuesday, and it would return an integer for the day of the week, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Then in your if statement, instead of looking at the name of the day, you just compare where it is in the week. So the weekdays would be all the days that are less than 4. And the weekends are the ones that are greater than or equal to 4.
Okay.
Yep. All right, cool. What is next? Okay. So, does anyone else have a question to go next?
Let me check. I don't have any. I don't think I have any questions.
Okay. It doesn't have to be
I think I might
questions
have
on
a
that.
question. I just don't remember it at this moment.
That's fine.
So-
If you know what topic it is, we can also just review topics here. If you guys want to review any certain subject we covered, we can just do a review of that here too.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't strictly have to be just like assignment questions.
Okay. So I'm just opening up Google Classroom.
Cool, cool.
Taking a while. Alright.
Okay.
All right. Hold up. Yeah. So
So
why exactly? So for each and every input line, right? I don't know how am I supposed to say this? It's for the I'm just gonna get this on Pastebin, so it might be easier to say.
sounds good.
Right. So,
Really quick, I was just wondering if we have to do we have to memorize all of the math class methods for like the CSAP test, or will they like be provided to us?
The ones for the math class. I think they kind of expect you to have at least some knowledge of them. I know you need to get the random class under math.random. You've got to understand that. Other stuff is just general math. I mean, you should know how to take the absolute value of something. You should know how to raise something to a power. But it's pretty easy to memorize. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Like, all the methods are named so that it's pretty easy to figure out what they do.
Okay.
And
Okay.
whatever you're trying to do in math, it's basically the name of that.
Mhm.
But yeah, you'll need to know some of it, but definitely not the whole thing.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So. So I added it into the group chat, the link.
I see it right here.
Yeah.
Let us take a look at that. All right. Okay. One quick thing: when you submit stuff to Pastebin, it's useful if you just set the language highlighting to Java, so it's highlighted syntax-wise.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
show you guys.
So,
It's just a nicety. I mean, nothing really big to worry about. Okay. So we're just gonna clone this real quick, just so I can make some edits, and I'm just gonna set
Okay.
syntax highlighting to Java. There we go. All right. Let's take a look. So we're importing scanner. That's good. That's your author.
Yep.
Review question 4 or 5. Main method is empty. We have is greater than one int or int other value. Okay. So what are we doing here? We're saying if other value is greater than 2001, print false. If it's less than 2001, print false. And then return
Yeah.
false. And then otherwise return true.
Yep.
Okay. So what are we trying to do here?
So I'm trying to get the user has to input something, and then when we get the I'm just lost my train of thought. So the user has to put an input in, and then that input has to equal to 2001.
Okay.
Right? So how so what exactly do we put in main? The main method?
Yeah, so let's go over that. So the main method is where the code will actually run. So right now, your main method is empty. That means that your code won't actually do anything. The fact that you've got your method called is greater than defined here, that's good. But right now, you're not using that method. Remember we talked about the difference between defining a method and using a method, or also called calling a method? Here we've defined what should be done, right? We've got the recipe on the shelf. But this is where the actual kitchen is, and we're not actually using that recipe to make anything. So if you wanted to run this method, you would have to put it right over here. So
okay.
let's go over this real quick. So I'm just going to open this up in Eclipse. Just do the
All right.
old Eclipse thing. This is question 6. Class question 6. And I'll just I'll have to rename it. Paste stuff in. Rename. Okay, so the first thing is that over here, there's nothing being done here. So if we run the program here, run, see it says terminated. That means that your program's done executing. Like your program said, all right, I'm done. If we just run your method here, if we literally just run is greater than, we're just gonna say is greater than, and then because it wants an integer, we're gonna give it, I don't know, 10. Now if we run it, it'll actually run this code with other val equal to 10. So now, what should this code do? Other val is equal to 10. So how does this run? What happens here? Which of these returns?
It would be false, of course. Right?
Yes. So it
return
runs the
false.
first one. 10 greater than 2001 is false. 10 less than 2001 is true. So it would print out false and return false. So so we just printed out false. Do we want to print out false?
No. You want to print out
There's a
but then because you inputted 10, it would be run as false. So I'm guessing yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we've got to do here is, well, there are a couple things. There's a difference between returning a value and printing stuff out. Can you describe the difference between those two things?
My sister hasn't got into the problem yet, so she's gonna. So I'm just gonna join.
Okay,
And then
sounds good.
she's
Fine.
Okay, so the idea here is that this method returns a value. So this method takes something in, an integer, and it returns a Boolean. It'll do that whenever you use a return statement. You don't have to print anything out. If you don't print these things, I'm going to comment out those print statements. The method will still run. It's still going to return true. It's just that it's not going to print it out here. So now if we take a Boolean and store it here, Boolean result of is greater than. Now we can do whatever we want this Boolean. We can print it out here if we want to. Or we could even attach it to, we can even concatenate more strings. The result is plus whatever the result is. Now if we run this, ta-da, the result is false. Forgot to add a space there.
Yeah. Okay.
That is greater than, this basically gets replaced by whatever the answer is. So if you return false, that's the same as still going result equals false. That's what the computer does in its brain. It literally just plugs in the answer. But in math, when you're plugging stuff in, think of plugging stuff in as like your scratch work, and printing stuff out as being your final work. Like when you print something out, that's like your final stuff that you want the user to see. And we probably don't want the user to see every step of our process. And in a method, you don't have to print stuff out in the course of a method. Some methods are very simple. They just take some data in, they spit some data out. They're not meant to actually tell the user anything. We use them behind the scenes for our logic and stuff. Whereas other methods might want to tell the user something. So in this case, it looks like we're just supposed to take in an integer and spit out a Boolean. And should it really be called is greater than? Should it really be called is greater than if it's checking if it's exactly equal?
Oh.
So it might make sense to rename this method.
Yeah.
So let's say that 2001 is our target value. So let's say is target value.
Okay.
So this makes it a little bit easier to understand what it is target value. So our target value is 2001. So we can return false, false, or true. This is pretty good. Here's something else. You could simplify this code in a couple ways. You could say if other val is greater than 2001, or other val is less than 2001. Then you could return false. Then you wouldn't even need this else if statement here, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So now this works exactly the same way. We're checking if it's greater than or less than. We return false. Otherwise, it has to be equal to, right?
Yeah.
Then we return true. That's totally fine, right? Now here's something else you could do. You could do it the other way around, and that way you don't even have to do this comparison. Even simpler would be if other val, is equal to 2001, and return true. Otherwise, return false. You got to throw that parenthesis in there. Now it's even simpler, right?
Okay.
We're basically saying if other val is 2001, return true. Otherwise, return false. Okay. Are we all on the same page so far?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next thing is that here we're basically returning true if this is true, this condition is true, and false if that condition is false. So what we're really doing is just returning whatever the value of this condition is, right? If it's true, it'll be true. If this is false, we return false. So honestly, we don't even really need this whole if and else thing. We literally just want to return the value of this condition. So we could literally just rip this out and we could say Boolean, I don't know, condition equals this. And that condition, the value of that condition. See that?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just looking for. How do I do this?
It gets even better. You don't even really need to put it inside of a variable. This is your condition right here. Other val equals 2001. You can just straight up return that. You can just return whether that's equals 2001.
Oh, so if I were to add the KB reader in, so if I were to add the KB reader in, where would I do it?
Well, you probably want to do that in your main method because it's like a top level thing that you're doing. If it was part of some other process, you might put it in a separate method and then call that method. But here, we might as well do it here. So let's make our scanner. Let's declare our scanner. We'll say static scanner input. And then right over here, we'll just initialize that. Input equals new scanner system.in. Now we've got our scanner named input. Cool. So we just want to get an integer in from the user, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So this is what the compiler will. This is what Java will do when your program runs. So when the program runs, input equals new scanner, and then we're going to say int user value. We'll just call it user value equals input.nextInt. And the user type in an integer, and then we're storing that as user value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can just put it right over here. Now we can just say is target value of user value.
Oh, okay. That makes
Now if we run it, you'll notice that it'll ask us. It actually should probably ask the user first, but we'll just say 1000. Hit enter, the result is false, and then program is terminated. Let's actually ask the user first before just grabbing input. We'll say system.out.println, enter a number. It may or may not have to be 2001. All right, now we expect that, and then we say whether the result is true or false. So enter number. I'm going to enter 2000. The result is false. I'll run it again. Enter 2001. The result is true.
Oh, okay. I see.
Cool.
So that was my question.
Cool. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome. 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 That's good. That is good. Yeah. All right. Have we any other questions now?
Yeah, so I'm gonna just send in my code.
Sounds good. We're getting more efficient about this whole paste bin thing.
Yeah.
Props to you guys on that.
Okay.
Look at that. We're just dashing through questions today. It's nice. Brewed some tea. Sitting here with a bunch of code. Tis a good day. Tis a good day. All right. Let's just take a look at this here. Inches to centimeters. Pretty simple looking.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know how, like, since I'm having a double inches, I have to do double inches, I was wondering how I'd make that into a string so I could say, like, for whatever input, I could say blank inches is whatever the result is centimeters.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's something that's really nice about how Java works. In Java, the plus operator on strings is used for concatenation. What that means is that you don't really even need to convert it into a string yourself because Java will really do that for you. If you try to add a double to a string, it'll convert the double into a string for you. So you can just add it like it was part of a string. So you could literally, for here, I'll just clone this. You could literally just say print line. You can add it to a string. You can say the result is, like I did before, plus, and then tack your result right at the end. And this will work perfectly fine. Even just copy this and show you real quick. 7, new class, question 7. I should probably use numbers for these, but all right. We're having a string. The result is, and I'm going to add a space there. And then we're using plus. So on the right side, what data type will this evaluate to?
A double.
Double, perfect, because this is double. And what data type is this?
A string.
Perfect. So string plus a double, the whole thing turns into a string. Double plus a double, whole thing turns into a number. So if you wanted to do that plus, I don't know, 10 plus something else, because we do things left to right, this will actually say the result is 1, 0, and then it'll add everything else in. So if you look at that, isn't that weird? It says 10 and then the actual answer.
Yeah.
If we wanted to add 10 to our double value, we'd have to wrap it in parentheses. It's just PEMDAS, but now the data types matter. Now it'll take this answer, add 10 to it, and then it'll tack that to the end of the string. Why data types are, there we go, 34. Data types are very important when working with operators, because depending on what type of data you're working with, the same operator might behave differently. But to answer your question, you can literally just do a string and then plus and then add a double there. So long as one side is a string, the whole thing will turn into a string.
Yeah, so I was kind of like wondering how, you know how I put in what the double inches was? So whatever number that was, I wanted to put that in the beginning. Like, how do I convert that double into a string?
So you mean the 9.8 here?
Yeah, but like, it could be any number. Like, I could change the number and then the code would change by itself. Like, I wouldn't have to.
Yeah. So the best way to do that is simply by putting this original number into a separate variable. So we can just say double original, or we can say double inches here. Because this is double inches inside of the main method, and this is double inches inside of the conversion method, these are two separate variables. Keep that in mind, okay? So I'm going to say double inches equals 9.8. So this is in one place in the code, and we're just going to use inches here. Now we can say however many inches. So we can say number of inches. So we can say inches, so like 9.8 plus the word inches.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Is the same as, and then we can add this here, and then on the end of it, we'll say centimeters.
Yeah, that's what I was
Plus
wondering.
centimeters. Be careful about the spaces here, guys. Remember that if you don't add a space, it's not going to add a space for you. So if I didn't put that space there, it would say AS and then the number right after. And now, if I take a look, it says 9.8 inches is the same as 24 point blah, blah, blah centimeters. And then I can change this in one place here. I don't know, 9.8 times 2, let's double that. Now let's run that again. Here we go.
Oh,
Now we've got different values. So this is the best way to do that. You basically store it in a separate variable and then refer to that variable instead of the actual literal data.
okay.
Classic use case for variables.
Mhm.
Does that answer your questions?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. All right, who have we next? All right. Do we have any other takers for questions? All right, are we about done with questions then, everyone?
Seems like it.
All right. Okay, well, last call for questions then. If anyone's got any other questions or any topic they want to cover or review.
So can I email you questions when I come across them?
Sure, yeah, you can do that definitely.
Yeah.
Alternatively, it'll be probably easier to explain here in depth, and you can actually talk back and forth. Yeah, you can
Okay.
definitely email questions over, but this might help to actually see it happening live. So
Okay.
another thing you could do is just wait, like have your questions ready, and then just shoot the links over in like Caseman once we do the office hours too. But yeah.
Okay.
Yep, as you come up with questions, you can save them, send them, whatever you'd like, so long as you're learning this stuff.
Okay.
Okay, is that about it, guys?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's hope
Yep.
that we get more people in next week, because I cannot imagine that everyone simply has no questions. People definitely have questions or don't understand certain concepts, So I hope to see them here next week. So if you guys could try to get the other students to come as well, it'll be helpful for the whole class.
Avi joined, but she's not able. Like her internet connection won't allow her to like join the Hangout, but she's like watching the live stream. Like she watched it yesterday.
Okay, well that's good. That's good. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear. Well, all right. Good to have you guys here. Try to get the other people to come next week. We can have a nice hustle and bustle to the class.
Okay.
All right, guys. See you later. Take care.
Bye.